Yeah, we're the last one, and so yeah, everyone's thinking about that drink, which is great. But and I do have 5 kids, which is fun, and I live close, so I go home at night to help in the morning with the kids. But thanks for being here. My name is Brad Scoggin. I am the CEO of ArborXR and one of 3 co-founders, and I think we have a really fun talk. I would say that arguably Walmart may be one of the most important companies to all of us in Enterprise XR. They've been in the space for a long time. They've achieved scale. It's Walmart. They don't chase shiny objects. They are all about ROI. And so I'm pretty excited to hear from Mohsen and Franky today about their journey from a closed ecosystem to an open ecosystem. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Arbor XR. Here we go. So Arbor is an MDM that's built specifically for XR. Probably most of you are familiar with Intune or VMware and using that for cell phones and tablets. Those just don't really work for XR, and so that's why we built Arbor. When we say MDM, mobile device management, we're talking kind of 3 primary things. Number 1 is managing the device. Where is the device located? What's the health of that device? And a very important stat is that almost 80% of our larger deployments are mixed hardware. So headsets from more than one manufacturer. So you have a lot of hardware companies coming out with light solutions for management. All of those are device agnostic and don't work in a mixed device setting. Second is that we help you install content, manage content, but maybe more importantly, about a year ago, keep hitting the wrong button, sorry, we launched a content directory. So we work with almost 200 ISVs. We've got futurists over here in the audience. So you come to us and we've vetted these 200 ISVs and we will tell us your use case and we can connect you with an ISV that's got experience building what you need. And then last, we help you manage what happens inside the headset. So you don't want employees or customers or patients getting into settings menus and games, and so we help customize and lock that down. We've been in the space, not only do I have 5 kids, I've been in XR for 8 years, which, wow, right? We insert the joke about how long that is in VR years. We've been doing this for a long time. In 21, we pivoted to enterprise. We work with almost 2,500 companies now. We're in 90 countries. We have a decent footprint in education. We work with almost 500 high schools and universities, a lot of the top global universities. But kind of our bread and butter is the large enterprise. We work with almost 70 of the Fortune 500, Global 2000. And say all that to say we have a fairly unique perspective. We've been doing this for a long time. We have a global perspective. We work closely with all the hardware companies. We work closely with Qualcomm. We're their preferred MDM. And so I think it's given us a unique perspective. And one of the things that we've adopted over the years, in 8 years I've been at a lot of conferences, we probably all have, and a lot of the talks are, okay, coat of paint on the same top over and over. And so we've really tried to have a value for bringing real actionable data, and that's why we do interviews like this. And the last thing I'll say, and we'll jump into the stars here, is in line with that, we launched a podcast about a year ago. And every time I say we launched a podcast, I kind of want to throw up because it just feels so, like it's a marketing thing. But I'll tell you what, it's been really good. So we've interviewed a lot of the people in this room. We've interviewed your peers, and they walk through very openly what their process has been to start XR, what challenges they faced, and a lot of the solutions they found. So I'd recommend that to you. It's the XR industry leaders with Arbor XR. Now, goodness gracious, keep pushing the wrong button. There we go. On to our stars here. So we've got Mohsen Khurasany, who is a senior manager of XR content innovation. He's been at Walmart since 2010, which that alone, it's impressive. I think anyone sticking it out anywhere that long is good. And we got Franky Summers, who is a senior creative designer and XR content. I think everyone knows the stat. I think the key stat with Walmart is that they've trained over 1 million people in VR. That's pretty impressive. There you go. So let's go there. So you have been doing XR, VR since 2019. So maybe talk about what's the largest benefit that you have seen?
Yeah, and just before we start, me and Franky are planning on starting our own podcast after this.
Bring it.
You can learn something.
Bring it.
We are not. I think the biggest benefit really is building trust with our associates. And other than just the benefits of VR, I remember we went out to, where were we, Dallas? And we're talking to some associates, and it just the mentally speaking, the psychological effect it has on the associates. They were telling us that they were really happy that we were investing in them, and we took the time to develop training that, in our case, it's a lot of safety training. We took the time to develop training that would potentially save their lives or someone else's lives, and with technology that we had to spend quite a bit of money on, and to them, that looked like an investment in the associates, which it really was. And that alone helps us drive engagement, and it drives over 1 million people to do the VR training and take it serious, versus doing a web-based training that you hit play, pull out your phone, play on it, and when it's done, you just walk away. I'll let you answer the rest.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's been really exciting to see because since we've been doing this, we've been going to like all these locations, and I'm not used to holding a mic, sorry. Going to all these locations and seeing the associates go through these, and hearing their conversations about just the muscle memory that they feel that they're picking up from this is just incredible. Like they've gone through it and they feel like they know exactly what they're going to do, and if a situation were to arise, because a lot of times when they're doing these video-based trainings, they're not watching them as in depth, or they've seen them a million times over again. When we put them in the VR headset, they really have to do the experience as if it's played out. So.
I was going to add something to it real quick. In-home deliveries up there, and I was one of the skeptics of VR training, to be honest. I've been at Walmart since 2010, and I recently joined this team only like 4 years ago. And I was not a true believer in VR training until I saw it myself. I went through it. We traveled to Arizona with Kate here for Skills VR. I remember opening the back of a van, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is deja vu. I know everything here. I never intended to learn the in-home process. I just knew it all, just because I had done the VR training. And that was the moment the light bulb trick, it hit for me. I was like, this is it. This is the type of training we need to really push on. So, and we've been running since.
You've worked with a lot of devices since 2019, both in quantity, but also different device types. Maybe talk to us about some of the challenges you've faced when implementing and managing those devices.
Yeah.
Deep breath.
Going from a closed ecosystem to the open ecosystem we are today, in a closed ecosystem, we had no control. And I think that's the problem with a closed ecosystem when you have a different vendor managing it all. Not having that control is not very good. With Arbor XR, for example, we manage all our devices. We can see their locations, their health, all of that, but we have full control. And that's the kind of key to a successful MDM and a management system. That's the biggest benefit of it. Give us the control, let us manage it, let us run it, and let us do what we need to do to be successful and not be dictated by somebody else.
I want to kind of walk through the process of going from the closed to an open. But before we do that, you shared maybe a personal story of how this impacted you, the training, but any other stories you could share from some of the associates who have had a benefit from XR?
I think it's more than just a few. We see a lot of benefits just from a return on the investment, right? We have cost reduction by not having to have people travel to specific areas to do a specific training. We have increased speed to proficiency in some areas. There's just so much value in there. And also one thing that we've heard from our field is that they're now seeing the new generation of workforce coming in who are basically grown up on tablets and phones and Xboxes and this and that. They want something like this, not what the older generations are used to and what they've been using.
Yeah, I was just to comment on that. I felt that's something I noticed as well, is that this new training is, I use the term fun a lot, and I feel like that's like frowned upon because we don't want to be like, oh, let's invest in fun. But I remember I pushed carts in 2011, and my training was on like an old white computer, and the video was from like the 80s. And as we develop these trainings, I feel like you can see it, and we've heard in these conversations, it's like, oh, I didn't think I was going to come to Walmart and be able to put a VR headset on and learn what I need to learn. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, let's shift to the closed ecosystem. I think it's probably, especially early on, was appealing. It's like, okay, that may be easier, but maybe talk about some of the challenges that you faced with the closed ecosystem.
I think the closed ecosystem has its place. I don't think it's all bad, right? But when you get to scale, to our scale, it's a little more difficult to rely on someone else to manage it. But if someone's trying to start from the beginning and needs more help, that system is good because you get the support you need and you don't have to rely on, a lot of people don't have the funds to invest in teams to manage it and all the hardware and all the software all at once. So that can be appealing at first. But once you get to the scale and you need to have a customized solution because you want to use your own vendors, you want to use your own data analytics and all of that, this transition was necessary to make it happen.
I think one thing we've seen too is just since 2019, the industry's grown up a lot. There's a lot more tools, there's a lot more ISVs, and so I think it's easier probably to do an open ecosystem today because there are best in class. There's other groups that can come in and help kind of move things along. Well, maybe walk us through a little bit the process of going from the closed to the open and some of the technical challenges that created for you.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think security is the first thing on our mind. We want to make sure everything's on our secure network. We want to make sure there's single sign-on to keep a seamless experience for our associates. From our associates' standpoint, it should be, hey, I'm going to the back room, putting the headset on, logging in with credentials I use every day, do my training, take it off, and walk away. It should be that simple. From a back-end standpoint, we have to make sure all of that works seamlessly across everybody, right? ArborXR, MDM, make sure the SSO is working. Cognitive 3D, make sure the data analytics is working and you're receiving the SSO information. And the roundtable, Futurist, Skills, all our content developers, and Deloitte, make sure you're giving that completion to the associate from whatever content they did, pass it back to our LMS. That's a pretty complicated circle of data, and we would not be able to do it on a closed ecosystem at all because we would not be able to go pick and choose the best in those each areas to make it happen. And that transition alone took us about a year. It was not, hey, we just found a couple vendors, we got it done. This was about a year's worth of work.
Yeah, and you hit on something important, the right partners. So to do an open ecosystem, you've got to have the right partners. What's your process for identifying and then selecting a partner?
I think AW is a great place for it. It's going to things like this, but also trusting our current partners and asking them for advice, right? You guys introduced us to Futurists, right? I didn't even know about Futurists until you told us about them. And we came here and met somebody who had a table in the very back who makes cabinets, for example, who does VR cabinets. Looking Glass XR. We were just looking for cabinets. We happened to see somebody who had a table in the very back. He was making cabinets. And now he's making cabinets for us to store our VR headsets. Networking here, growing your network, and trusting those people, learning from them, leveraging them, that's the best way to do it. And granted, once we do that, we obviously do our due diligence and research them and see what they have done and all that. But I think the people here have been the biggest help to us because we would not know half of them to get this done. And that, I mean, I got to thank you guys for that and everybody else in this room who has helped us. So leverage your network, grow your network, and take advantage of events like this to talk to people, learn from them, and go from there. And we're here too. Like, we're not going to keep secrets. We are here to help. If you want our help or you want to know how we did things after this, reach out to us. We're happily share. We all grow from this, and this whole XR enterprise space will grow from this. And if we can all help each other and grow this industry, we're very happy to do so.
Well, let's talk about content specifically. You've got experience with in-house content creation, third party. What are some of the challenges managing that from both kind of the beginning all the way through?
I can call something out on that. I think that since we have so much content, especially as this grows, that we have multiple different vendors that we need to use. And with something like Walmart, we have very specific brand guidelines that we need to follow, and the user experiences need to match. Like if we have multiple vendors developing content, we kind of want the associate not to know that. You know, we want them to like feel like they're in the same experiences across the board, and just have a real simple user experience. And another challenge to that is because we're Walmart's, our brand standards are always changing. Like you probably tell, Mo and I are wearing 2 different blues on stage right now, and people might argue which one's the right one, but
mine's out of date.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that one's out of date, but next month it might be in date. So just things like that, just making sure we're clear across the board and creating a cohesive experience.
Yeah, this logo, for example, you see is pretty much changed to the squiggly, what is it, cursive logo that they have now. So all our content now has to be updated. So that's fun stuff. That's a big challenge, but getting everybody on board, like Franky said, those standards, making a seamless experience for the associate. Again, put on the headset, do the training, don't even think twice about it, and move on.
If you can wind your mind back to 2019, so I mean, a long time ago. And so a lot of people in this room, maybe you're starting out for the first time. What's some advice when you can think back, maybe some of the mistakes you made, closed ecosystem or not, and advice you might give for someone early in the journey?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think we were really, this is gonna sound really bad, we were lucky with COVID because we stopped training, but that gave us such a good opportunity to kind of reset and take that time. I think if we got to do it again, the mistake would be just take the time to research better and understand what we need to do to be successful to get to this point, rather than rushing to whatever the newest, most flashy technology is that we think is gonna be the best. Take the time, research, talk to more people, and make the decision from that standpoint. COVID helped us with that. We locked down, we stopped training altogether. So we got the chance to take about that year to really do it right, start from ground zero and make the best product that we have.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you think about it, we stopped sending people places to train, putting headsets on their head. It really gave it was like a moment of like, oh, how can you take time to think about how to do this the right way?
And what's been your process? Obviously, ROI is very important. You wouldn't have grown at the rate you've grown and been as committed to VR as you have been if there wasn't ROI. So what's the process, as much as you can share, of measuring that, reporting that back, the speed at which you do that to get what you need to take the next step?
It really varies project by project. If it's something that's related to safety, and that's really hard to measure, like active shooter training is one of those. How do you measure a return on investment on active shooter? You really can't. What you can do is just prepare your associates so that they're as prepared as they can be to potentially save their own life or someone else's. You can't really measure ROI on that. It's more about making sure that we're investing in that, and that's worth it. So from that perspective, we do that, and that comes from safety to ethics and compliance and all those little pieces, stuff we just have to do to make sure we're doing it right. Other things that are a little more measurable, doing supply chain, seeing if we're increasing, case move per hour, things like that, or if associates are reaching their proficiency levels faster than they would otherwise. Far easier to measure, and that just depends on which segment of the business we're targeting. We're a big company. We have a lot of different things we do, so it just varies by department. So I can't really tell you, we do this one thing. But supply chain is very simple. Cases moved, that's usually their number one measured metric. In terms of our other business in Walmart and store operations, it's usually like shrink-in claims if we're reducing that. Auto care center, we do a lot of tire changes and oil changes. We damage a lot of cars in that process too. So can we reduce that? Can we reduce the amount of times we damage an oil filter, or how many times somebody hits somebody else while they're doing a test drive with the vehicle? Those things happen. So if we can reduce those things, that's the metric that we're looking at.
Let's talk about scale. You are one of the, I think if we're all honest, there's a handful of companies who have really gone to scale, and you're one of them. I'd love to hear one or two or three, kind of like these are the biggest challenge, and here's the solution as we've gone on our journey to scale.
I think our own scale is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
We're so segmented. We're Walmart. We have Walmart US, we have Sam's Club, we have DC's, and they all kind of do things a little different. They all have their own little networks and intricacies that it's just challenging from that perspective to scale. If we were just Walmart and everything was the same across the board, this would be far easier. That's very challenging. Also, the scale means higher volume of things, making sure we can get large volume of headsets. Like we needed 13,000 headsets. Couldn't get them all at once, had to get them in little batches because that's just as fast as we can get them produced. And that volume is a big challenge to deal with as well. But also we can't flood every store at once. Suddenly have, like 6,000 stores with headsets. The support nightmare, Jared would love that.
I think, like the phased rollout was like anything else. I feel like just like starting slow and working your way up to that massive scale is really important. You don't want to break anything with everything out there all at once. So,
and that goes with our vendors too. Like if we put 13,000 people at once on something, and let's just say, I'm not saying anything would happen, but maybe something did happen with Arbor. Maybe overflowing your servers or something, or Cognitive or whoever else. If it's just such a big scale that you got to be a little careful and not suddenly jump into it head first like that.
We'll do one more, and then we'll open up for QA. When we think about managing, from Arbor's perspective, we say managing devices, content, and then the headset or the user. Really, we think about the learner journey. So how you've got a lot of use cases across the country. How do you manage that the learner journey?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Uh-huh.
We have a large team to help with that. That's the.
I'm a professional podcast host. Okay, so you're gonna get one.
Can you give me more detail? Like, what specifically would you? What part of the learning journey? So we cover.
Well, you've got associates all over the place doing all different types of training. How are you tracking the results of that? Not from an ROI perspective, but just from are the associates learning the necessary? Are they tracking through the training, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a far bigger thing than just us. So we cover associates' journey from day 1 to day 0, or what would that be? What would be your last day? Mm-hmm. So from onboarding to your exit day, right?
Yeah.
Like
The
and
end.
everything in between. And where VR is a small part of that.
Got it.
We're definitely growing and we're touching more parts of that, but we have an internal LMS that, again, all our systems that we've done with XR feed into as well. So we can track the history of the associate from non-XR standpoint and XR. So we have other folks as well that help with that to make sure the associate's being developed in areas that they need. That just fluctuates so much. Mm-hmm. 1 year, like this year, safety is a huge thing. Next year, it might be ethics and compliance. The following year, I don't know, it might be something else.
Safety again.
Probably safety again. It just depends on what the focus of the year is, and we just make sure we're actually there and providing the training that's needed to develop our associates, whatever the need is at that moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's interesting, too, to hear from Walmart, who's at such scale and been doing it for so long, that still VR is just a part of the overall training initiative. So we do have a couple minutes left for questions.
Hi there. Thank you for sharing your learning with us. I'm curious, how did you select out of the many training scenarios the one that you felt that provides the biggest impact when using VR?
I was going to say, that's active shooter, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of it comes from the business, right?
yeah,
So,
we work with our businesses. I mean, again, we have business partners in operations and all other parts of the company. We do target certain things. We don't do everything VR. We make sure we're very aware of that. We can flood the VR space with content. It will quickly lose its appeal. So we want to do things that are dangerous, expensive, or just otherwise impossible to do otherwise, but also make sure our business partners are aligned within the company that is the training they want. That's where the investment that they want to put into. It is a collaboration across the board. We don't just make that decision.
Another question?
Talk to me a little bit about creating these experiences. For any burgeoning company out here who thinks that XR would fit nicely into a training module. Do you guys use agencies? Is it an internal build? Do you outsource any of that? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, so we have a few vendors that we use, Roundtable, Deloitte, Futris, and once we get the training from the business, we'll have the kickoff meetings, decide what that training needs to be, and just work with the external vendors.
They're all in this room, by the
Yeah,
way.
they are.
So if you want to connect with them, I would recommend it. Again, we don't keep things secret. They usually ask us, like, hey, so-and-so wants to learn. We happily share that so you can see it, and we'll also share our experiences and help out as well.
I would say, too, a good content creator like the ones you mentioned are also really good at working through that pilot with you and helping get to ROI as quick as possible so you can take the next step. So they kind of help manage that process.
Got our final question here.
How did you go about upskilling your instructors?
Ooh, that's a good one. That was actually a challenge. We have a lot of instructors and people who design, sorry, the lights are just in my eyes, and people who design our courses, and we definitely had to walk them through the XR process, the XR pipeline as well, development and things like that, get them familiar with it, because they're just like anybody else. They saw a new technology and they're like, hey, I need it for everything. So again, it's a collaboration. We basically skilled them up. We taught them what this is all about. We walked them through all the processes. And a lot of them have since been pretty good about it. Now they understand it. But again, you just have to take the time to invest it and skill up everybody in your area so they know what and when to use this.
So let me, first of all, thank our distinguished moderator, Brad, and the two honorable Walmart members of our panel. So let's give them a round of applause.